this Chelsea season preview edition of the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, content and contests, including our NFL Win Totals contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. We're also brought to you by Parlay Play. Parlay Play is a lead pipe lock-in for parlay and player props. Go to parlayplay.io. Use the promo code SGP for a 100% deposit bonus today. Welcome, everybody, to the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. My name is Malcolm Bamford, coming to you from Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. We are carrying on our countdown to the Premier League season with a preview of all 20 teams. Not many to go. This one's exciting. This one is Chelsea. And joining me is Mr. Barry Penaluna. Hello, Baz. Nice to see you there.
Hello, Malcolm. It's been a while.
I'm keeping well since 7 minutes ago, since we last did this. Anything happened?
Not a lot, really. It's all a bit quiet. We're having a bit of a debate over who's going shopping. Because I need to go in the office tomorrow, which means taking the car, and Helen needs food, which means she'd have to have the car to go shopping. Or somebody has to go shopping tonight. We've been a little bit stubborn about it. I don't want to go. So,
what is it? The big weekly shop, is it?
Nah, just making sure there's like stuff in for tomorrow.
Can you not just get a little delivery in, Baz?
You know, when the kids are like at school, you don't have to think of these like lunches and stuff. It's making sure the kids have got stuff. So yeah. Other than that, Malcolm, nothing's happened really.
Well, the IT department's becoming increasingly furious with me sitting here. She's had to take the boy to football and also can't have anything to eat because I'm in the kitchen. She can't make her tea. So our presence on these shows is wearing pretty thin, Baz. But luckily, this is quite a good fun one. Chelsea, Baz. What on earth? We've said some of the mid-table ones have been a bit boring. And even some of the other end, like Man City was a bit boring because what do you do with Man City? You kind of know what you're going to get. Chelsea are the exact opposite. You don't know at all what you're going to get. They were a shambles last year. An absolute shambles. This year promises much more with Pocchetino in charge. But then equally, they've still got a gazillion players to bed in. They've got all the players to sign last year. They're still signing players. So today they're after Tyler Adams. They can still only play 11 players. There is something that speaks to the size of their squad, which is quite funny, which we'll get onto in a little while. Something I just asked you before we started. But what we're going to do, we're going to have a look around what we expect from Chelsea. We will make some betting picks based on those opinions of me and Baz. And then later on, we'll have a look at Fantasy League as well and try and give you some Chelsea players to watch. If there are any Chelsea fans who have joined us, found us by mistake here to consume some Chelsea content before the season starts, this is the place to be. We have a sort of a bi-weekly chat, me and Baz. We give out some betting picks. We go through all the cards. We cover the Champions League, international breaks, lots of silliness and shenanigans as well, and the FPL. You'll find us on Spotify, Apple, Google, Premier League Gambling Podcast, on Twitter at SGP and Premier. So yeah, give us a like, rate and review, and just come back and join us through the season, and we'll try and pick some winners as we go. Baz, Chelsea for you. Do you have good memories, bad memories of Chelsea?
I've never been a big fan of Chelsea. I suppose we talked about teams who have been good when we were good, and obviously that was a long time ago. I suppose Chelsea's takeover came along at the time where we were starting to decline, weren't we?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, as a Newcastle fan, you would love it to be those days like the Chelsea takeover where we could just buy who we wanted and not have to worry about money, but we can't. Nah, I mean, I can't really think of any massive games that really stand out or anything. So no, not much. What about you, Malcolm?
Reception's gone a bit haywire here, but the thing that I suppose I remember most is the cup semi-final when we got beat 2-1. Because it's a weird one, because obviously that was the greatest single moment of being a Newcastle fan, is when Robert Lee scored that equaliser. Because we've been to Wembley a couple of times and not bothered scoring against Arsenal in the cup finals and Man United and what have you. And then that one against Chelsea, we were 1-0 down and we equalised. And that was purely that 90 seconds of going absolutely mental was the best 90 seconds we've had, because it's the nearest we've come to. We've never got in front in a cup final or a semi-final. We'd never come from behind. We equalised, and that was it.
I was at that one. I think it was Poyet, wasn't it? Did Poyet get both the goals for them?
Poyet got the second one. I remember Kieran Dyer. We were right in the front row. Kieran Dyer was lying down injured right in front of us. And nowadays, they just stopped the game, but they carried on. And Poyet scored the header when Dyer was down injured. And that was it. Yeah. And then, I mean, Chelsea were good. They would come up and repeatedly hump us. Didier Drogba, I remember seeing him up here a load of times. My first, there's probably a handful of times where I've seen a footballer who I was absolutely astounded by. And the first time I saw Didier Drogba was when he played for Marseille in that cup semi-final against Newcastle. And I was sitting quite behind the dugout, and I just couldn't believe the size and the power and the strength of him. I mean, he was covering like 25 foot with each stride. Like, he was just absolutely incredible. And then carried on to pain. I think he pained everyone in the Premier League, not just Newcastle fans. But yeah, Chelsea, I've never been away to Chelsea, actually, one of the few teams I've not been to. But yeah, generally thought it was quite an unpleasant place to visit, just sort of always difficult to go. And I mean, they've had a great run, but it has dropped away a little bit with the emergence of Manchester City. But yeah, last season was just wild, really. I'm not really sure what happened. It was great expectations under Graham Potter. They signed everybody. Between them and Forest, there was no players there. Spent an absolute fortune. And then it just turned into shambles. They actually started all right. They sort of won 4 games in a row quite early on. And then the wheels came off pretty quickly. And after the wheels came off, I'm not entirely sure what they were doing. When they appointed Frank Lampard, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I mean, they had 1 win in 9 that saw Potter sacked, including that 4-1 defeated Brighton. I think was a bit of a hammer in his coffin after he'd come from Brighton. Appointed Lampard. I mean, they went on a run of 3 wins in 21. 2 of those were against Leeds and Leicester, who got relegated. The players just seemed to down tools, and it was really baffling. I mean, it was great from a betting point of view because we faded them on a weekly basis. Like, I remember getting Villa to beat them at 5-1 one week. And every time they went away from home, you just kind of faded them. So it was a head-scratching season, Baz. But this year, obviously, Pocchetino, great reputation, knows the Premier League, did a very good job with Tottenham without winning anything. And they continue to spend money, like I've just said. They're still picking players up. I mean, their squad must be absolutely gigantic now. But it's going to be a competitive league. Chelsea have now got Newcastle and Aston Villa and Brighton to contend with for those top 4 spots. So, yeah, what do you expect, Baz?
It's a hard one, isn't it? I mean, there's been a huge amount of change. Obviously, Pochettino coming in. You could argue that they've been as active in the transfer market this year as they were last year. Only this time there's a bit more balance in terms of ins and outs, whereas last year it was just loads of incomings. There has been, they have
got shot of a few. You're right.
Yeah, so they've had to trim the squad down. That was inevitable. I think there was clearly a bit of a need to balance the books as well. They've actually made a profit this transfer window so far. I think they probably had to balance the books a little, hence the sales of Havertz and Mount to bring in some good money. So yeah, they turned a profit, although that could change. I know they're still continuing to pursue Caicedo from Brighton. That would push them into positive spend. I mean, it was clear last season they needed a striker. Nicholas Jackson and Nkunku have come in to help that situation. But I'd say Chelsea are one of the hardest for me to work out ahead of this season. I look at it and I think they could finish anywhere from 2nd to 10th, and I wouldn't be massively surprised. I mean, 2nd's probably a bit of a stretch. The squad's got potential for a good season, and Pochettino is definitely a boost. I definitely think they'll improve on last season I mean, they'd struggle not to. But it's just how much can they improve in one season is what I'm not so sure about. So, I mean, you look at the key signings, you've mentioned the ins and the outs. They brought in Nkunku, Jackson. Disasi came in last week, £40 million signing from, that was at Monaco, I think, wasn't it? Centre-back. But going out, they have lost Havertz, Mount, Kovacic, Koulibaly, Pulisic, Mendy, Loftus-Cheek, Kante, Azpilicueta, Bakayoko, Fofana, Aubameyang. So there has been loads going out. Lots of activity. And it's just how much that team settles. I mean, in the pre-season, they've looked good. They've not lost a game. They came up against Brighton and Fulham in the Premier League series, whatever they called it in America. They beat both of them. They drew 1-1 with Newcastle, and then they had a 1-1 draw just at the end of last week against Dortmund. So, decent quality of opposition. They're unbeaten. But as I say, the big question mark me is how quickly they can get back to where they were with so much change in one season. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a couple of things in their favour, and there's a couple of things going against them. I think from our point of view, trying to find any trends and patterns, Baz, you just have to throw out last year. We can't look at last year. There's been a lot of teams, and you'd expect them to follow a similar template to what they did last year. Teams, whether they'll be defensive, whether they'll keep clean sheets, whether they'll score goals. I don't think you can do that at all with Chelsea, which makes them such an intriguing proposition and so hard to establish what they're going to do this year. It's going to be a different team, a largely different team. There'll be 5 or 6 new faces in there that played last season. Different manager, ergo a different style of play. I don't know what their best team is at all. I've got no idea what their best team is. Pocchetino, it's going to take a long time, or certainly a couple of months maybe, for Pocchetino to get this right. One of the things he does have, though, is time, I think. They've got no European football, which is going to be a massive boost for them. But he's still going to... You tell me which 5 or 6 of Sterling, Gallagher, Fernandes, Mudryk, Madueke, Chukwuemeka, Matson, Jackson, Nkunku that you've just mentioned. I don't know if I miss. I must be definitely missing people. Tyler Adams, if they sign him. There's 9 or 10, and they can only play 5 of them at the front half. The back 4 looks a little bit more settled. Chilwell, Colwill looks a good player. You've got Reece James, you've got Thiago. But I just think it's going to take time, and I think it's inevitable that they're going to fall behind initially. So I don't think they're certainly not going to make a sort of a run for the league. I'm not expecting them challenging for the championship. It's going to be top 4, top 6, or something like that. If they get their act together, the numbers, Baz, to win the league, Chelsea are 18-1 to finish in the top 4. They're 6-4 plus 150. The top 6 finishes 4-9. That's minus 227. To miss out on the top 4 is 1-2, minus 200. To miss out on the top 6 is 13-8. That's plus 162. Top half finish is 25-1 on. A bottom half finish is 9-1. 200-1 to get relegated. And on the handicap, they have a 19 points head start. Any of those, Baz, really tricky, but what draws your eye out of those numbers?
As I say, this is one of the hardest ones I've found for me to pick someone. I think expectation among the media and social media is that there'll be a massive improvement from Chelsea and they'll suddenly be right in the top 4 mix again. And I'm just not sure I can see them stretching it that far. I think they're just coming from a long way back. They were 27 points off the top 4 last season. Now, a lot of that was where they just basically threw away the end of the season with Lampard, didn't they? But they were still 18 points off the top 6 last season as well. And that's a huge jump to make in one season. And whilst they look to have improved their attacking options, which was a necessity, they've also lost some big names: Mount, Havertz, Azpilicueta, Kante. Some of them that have left are getting on, but it does leave a bit of a gap in terms of experience. When you lose players like Azpilicueta and Kante, it's the leadership you lose and the experience. I talked about this on the Liverpool podcast about how sort of the likes of Milner and Henderson leave more of a hole than what they offer on a playing side of things, because of their leaders and that they have the experience to sort of get you a bit more out of your team. I think Chelsea will be better. As I say, they have to be, but I think it'll be progress on a smaller scale than people are possibly predicting. So for me, I've gone for Chelsea to finish out of the top 6. We just think outside of the top 6 for Chelsea is 13-8. What's that? Plus 167. There's just a lot of teams in the hunt for the top 4, top 6 this year, and Chelsea are coming the longest from the longest way back. So at plus money, I think the top 4 from last season are all definitely going to be there or thereabouts again. Liverpool will definitely be in. So then that leaves one space left between Chelsea, Spurs, Brighton, Villa. I mean, we've pushed Spurs further down. And there's no reason why Villa can't finish above Chelsea. There's no reason why Brighton could push them again. I mean, Brighton were the team who did finish 18 points ahead of them last season. So yeah, I'm going with Chelsea outside of the top 6.
The Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon is a great place to get access to exclusive contests, including the NFL Win Totals contest. It's got a $1,000 first place prize. The monthly SGP Stories podcast on there, just ad-free, and it's full of behind-the-scenes stories from SGPN. The Discord channel is outstanding. Sign up for all of that at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon, at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Well, Baz, I didn't want the top 4. I mean, Manchester City, obviously, we're high on Newcastle, we're Newcastle fans, but also I can only see upside from Newcastle. Arsenal looked good yesterday. It's then competitive. Manchester United is short price. And then you've got the teams that you mentioned. It throws in Liverpool, Chelsea, whatever. And I do think it's going to take a little while for them to get going. Like you say, I think maybe come November, December, they could go on a right old run. But you need to see it, I think. I mean, Chelsea fans will probably be dead excited. And as a Chelsea fan, if you wanted to put your money on a top 4 finish at 6-4, wouldn't put you off at all. But, I mean, that 5th to 8, Chelsea, Liverpool, Villa, Brighton, Spurs, even if you want to throw Spurs in there, it's really, really competitive. And even a slow start might just catch you out there. They have got, like I say, that added bonus of not playing in Europe is going to help a lot. I picked exactly the same as always, but fortunately, the pick was to miss the top 6. Was at 13-8 plus 162. So completely independently, we've come down on the same side. I have written down a pick that you mentioned, and that was Villa to finish higher than Chelsea, which is a price of 5-2 plus 250. The more I look at Villa, and the business that they've done and how the manager's going about stuff, the way they've played in pre-season, I've got a really good feeling about Villa. Not a good feeling because I don't like him, but a strong feeling. They could be up to 6th, maybe as high as 5th. I think they could even usurp Liverpool. It might just be edging Man United, for that 4th spot. So yeah, they would be my 2 picks. If you wanted a positive pick for Chelsea, Baz, I think might be the cup competitions, particularly maybe the FA Cup. They've done really well in the cup competitions historically lately. They've got a cracking record in the FA Cup. They were haven't they won it plenty times recently? Oh, I've got that confused. That is Chelsea, isn't it?
I can't think what the.
No, neither can I. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yesterday, Malcolm.
No, you're right. But in the FA Cup one obviously starts in January. By that time, Pocchetino and Chelsea might absolutely be hitting their straps and ready to put a run together. So I think Chelsea to win one of the cups might be a live bet if you are a Chelsea bettor and you want to get involved in that. They would be my picks.
Yes, yeah, Chelsea FA Cups, Malcolm. 21-22 lost in the final. 2021 lost in the final. 19-20 lost in the final. And 16-17 lost in the final. So
told you. So that's 4.
They did win one. They did beat Manchester United 1-0 in 17-18. But you're right, in terms of their appearances in the final, they've been in 5 of the last 7 FA Cup finals.
Oh, there you go. What price are they to win the FA Cup, Baz? Any idea? I would put them up now at 7-1 if I was a bookie.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that. Well,
You find that. I'll tell everyone, Baz, about this alliterative new sponsor that we've got. Fantastic stuff from Parlay Play. Parlay Play is a great way to get down on your favourite parlayed player props. Football season right around the corner. That's football season. That shouldn't be on this show. NFL season is right around the corner. Parlay Play will have all your favourite props, and Parlay Play is available in a ton of states, including California and Texas. Plus, for our friends up north, Parlay Play is available in a bunch of provinces in Canada. Sign up with our code. You'll get a sweet bonus to get started. Parlay Play I like is the top and bottom bet of Manchester United to win. Sorry, I keep saying Manchester City to win the league and Sheffield United to finish bottom. That's a price of 9-2, Baz. It's a little Parlay Play. That's what I'll be playing at parlayplay.io. Use the promo code SGP there for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's parlayplay.io, promo code SGP. And Chelsea to win the FA Cup, Baz, are
8-1. And you can get
8-1.
10-1 to win the EFL Cup. So options there if you fancy them to win something.
They're only 7-1 in my shop, Baz. You lost out on a point if you backed them with me.
I mean, if you want to back any trophy, 3-1, that seems a little bit stingy. I'd rather back the Carabao and the FA Cup individually.
Yeah. 100% agree. Completely agree. Fantasy League, Baz. We've got a listener league, so if there are any new listeners here, Chelsea supporters, and if you're a fantasy player, come and have a game in our league. It's free to play. We've got some prizes. We've got 150 quid in cash for you. We've got some merch available from the store. We've got the Egg in a Cup and all the glory that involves. The code you need for the league is CVVQAB. That is Cucurella Viali, Quantity Abraham Babayaro. No Q's, Baz, again. If there's no Q's, it absolutely stymies me. So I went with quantity due to the quantity of players at the same. So CVV QAB Celestine Babayaro, Baz. He was shy, wasn't he?
He was for us. I think he done all right at Chelsea, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he did all right at Chelsea. That's why we bought him. And then, like everyone else that we bought in that period of time, continued to be crap. Baz, you're the FPL expert. Give us some Chelsea players to pick.
Yes. In defence, I think Chilwell and Reece James are both be popular. 2 strong attacking fullbacks, good potential for attacking returns. They're both at 5.5 million, and at least one of them will definitely prove to be worth that 5.5 million. I've currently got Chilwell in my lineup. Reece James just struggled with injuries. He was in and out of things last year, and I couldn't seem to time it right. He'd have a couple of good weeks. I'd sign him, then he'd be missing with injury for 3 or 4 weeks. I've never got Reece James right at any point, so I've steered towards Chilwell for that reason. I mean, if staying fit, then Reece James would probably be the preferred option, to be honest. Colwill, if he's starting regularly in that centre-back spot at 4.5 million for a Chelsea defender, he would be an absolute bargain, and he will suddenly appear in many teams. I think you might have had him in your first draft, whether he is or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, Colwill's definitely another one in the defence. Nothing really jumps out in midfield. I think, important for players that haven't played before. Enzo Fernandez is a quality player, and he comes with a big price tag. But for fantasy purposes, he's not going to get you much. So the players you would look at in midfield would be the likes of Sterling. But I think it's probably a little bit pricey at 7 million. It's the cheapest Sterling's ever been in the game. But particularly now they've added some attacking depth. Sterling doesn't really appeal to me at this point. I'd want to see how they're setting up and how regular Sterling is playing. So that brings us to the 2 forwards. There seems to be a big push amongst sort of content creators. Everyone seems to suggest you have to have a Chelsea attacker in your team. And a lot of that comes down to the fixtures. They've got a really nice run of fixtures. They've got Liverpool on the opening day, but after that it's West Ham, Luton, Forest, Bournemouth, Villa. So a nice little 4-game stretch where you could have potential to get some points. So Jackson's at 7 million and Nkunku at 7.5 million. Both had good pre-seasons, although Nkunku has picked up an injury. So you'd have to sort of see how he's faring on the injury front before putting him in. Nkunku currently sits, he seemed to be in everyone's squad when he sits. I mean, we've mentioned on the fantasy stuff, you look at all the content creators on Twitter and it's just copy and paste the same team. And
the template, Baz. There was even an Athletic article out yesterday. Did you see it? It said, what is the template and why you should fear it? Yeah, the bleeding template.
So Nkunku was the template. Everyone had him in. Him or Jesus was the two options, and both of them have managed to pick up an injury. But I think, having watched the friendlies for Chelsea, more and more people are leaning towards Jackson now, who looks like he's going to play as the central striker. He's also had a good pre-season for them. So at the moment, Nkunku's in 14% of live teams, and Jackson is in 10% of teams. Reasonably high numbers at this stage. I haven't got either of them, and I'm leaning towards starting without either of them because it's a tough first game against Liverpool. If they go and beat Liverpool on that first day and look really, really exciting, then suddenly I might be looking to switch. I think I'd probably go with Watkins at the moment, and it might be that quickly switch. So I'll be able to move from one to the other. But I think at the cheaper price, Jackson looks the best option at the moment. He'd appeal more to me. He appears he's going to be the central striker. And Nkunku can play there, or he can play just off as a second striker. But it remains to be seen. But Jackson at 7 million, if he starts the season well, will be a good mid-priced striker.
Yeah, you've got loads of options. What we were laughing at earlier on with the squad size was we came on and I said to you, Bas, where is Nkunku on the list? He's not on the list. I don't understand. And it's because the list stretches to a second page, and I haven't bothered looking on the second. I couldn't find the second page. I clicked on all the players whose names I'm not familiar with, thinking that he might be hyphenated or something, and I couldn't find him anywhere. So I was looking all over. It turns out they've got that many players. It stretches to a second page. But I think there's more reliable options than those Chelsea in the front half of the pitch, like you say, Nkunku and Jackson. You're looking at Ollie Watkins, and then there's loads of those kind of £7.5 million midfielders who I think I'd be starting with ahead of them. However, pivoting to Chelsea players is certainly something that you'll be looking to do, like almost immediately if they go well. But having said that, I think it might take them a little time to get settled. Then that'll be reflected in my team. It's a defenders that you'll want. Actually, I did write down the name of Conor Gallagher because I think he's really cheap. He's 5.5 million, when really I think he should be in that same bracket as all the other 6.5s, the Almirons and Harvey Barnes and Mitomas and people like that. I think if Conor Gallagher, again, it's will he get a game or not? But you could save a mil there on Gallagher. He's a good player. And you're right, I have got Levi Colwell in my draft at the moment, 4.5 million. Excellent player. Had a great time with Brighton last year, and I think he'll start. So yeah, interesting. But they would be my players. And
I mean, Gallagher.
Gallagher
is in the season he had with Palace was a really, really good option. He was 5.5 million to start that season. He got 140 points, 8 goals and 6 assists. Let's see, he's starting at that price again. So we know he's got the potential. It's just whether he gets the game time. So definitely a watch and brief for Gallagher. But at that price, 5.5 million, he could become an option, as you say, if he starts to play regularly. He definitely want to consider.
I think, Baz, we've got it covered. Anything else you'd like us to add?
Nothing else Chelsea related, no.
Nothing else Chelsea related. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, come and join us again if you found us for the first time in all the usual spots, and we give out our picks for the weekend. Barry smashed the daylights out of the opening day of the EFL at the weekend, and we did okay last year. We had more good days than bad, so come along. We'll give you our betting thoughts. There might be something that tickles your fancy, and otherwise we'll generally talk a bit of lifestyle and all sorts of silliness. So if you enjoyed it, and if you do come back, give us a like and a rate, a review, all that sort of stuff. Cheers, Barry. 3 more to go, mate. We've nearly done it, and then it'll be football time on Friday. Thanks, Baz. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Good luck with any bets. We'll see you down the road. Cheers.